Last night was a very rough period for our city, but today I think we saw a lot more of what Baltimore is about. We saw people coming together to reclaim our city.
We need to let them know that we're not going to stop until we get some justice and peace.
But now let's just chill and see if they're going to answer the call.
We have to rebuild the hearts, minds, and spirits of people and renew their hopes and dreams.
No justice! No peace! No justice! No peace!
Good evening, I'm Nikki Zizaza.
And I'm Rick Ritter. Thank you for joining us for the special edition of WJZ News at 7. Freddie Gray, 10 years later.
Freddie Gray's death forever changed the city of Baltimore and the nation. By 2015, the Black Lives Matter movement was underway following the deaths of several unarmed African Americans.
And 3 years before Gray's death, Trayvon Martin was shot and killed in the state of Florida. Eric Garner died at the hands of New York City police officers in 2014. And then that same year, Tamir Rice and Michael Brown both shot and killed by police.
Coast to coast, thousands of people marched in solidarity against racially motivated violence in the United States. And in April 2015, more people would march here in Baltimore after the death of Freddie Gray. He died after suffering a spinal cord injury while in police custody.
And WJZ investigator Mike Helgren takes us back to the time that forever changed our community.
Just after 8:30 in the morning, April 12, 2015, the moment a Baltimore police officer locked eyes with 25-year-old Freddie Gray set in motion a seismic series of events that changed policing and shook this city to its core.
He was arrested for making eye contact with police in a high poverty area, which in only some areas of this country is a crime. And that's the issue.
We are tired of being abused, neglected.
Denise Perry lives across the street from where officers arrested Gray. And she could hear his screams, captured in a video seen around the world as he was arrested and placed into the back of a police van where he would suffer the injuries that ultimately killed him.
I think that's the sad part. It could have been done differently.
By the time Gray got to the Western District Station, he had a fractured neck. The medical examiner ruled his death a homicide.
What I think the people of Baltimore want more than anything else is the truth.
Billy Murphy represented Gray's family and won a $6.4 million settlement.
The circumstantial evidence was overwhelming that somebody did something wrong to Freddie Gray, but where the evidence was unclear was who did it. The suffering that he had to endure was catastrophic. It brought the whole country into Baltimore.
Days of protest turned violent shortly after Gray's funeral. Baltimore police were ill-equipped to handle the unrest, as the commissioner at the time admitted.
But this is a face-to-face standoff between Baltimore City Police and the people that are down in the street.
It was something that I had never seen in the city, never thought I would see.
A decade ago, current Commissioner Rich Worley was a major in the Northeast District.
We basically couldn't handle it because we were unprepared.
Let's go, y'all. We're gonna offer down at the location, Pennsylvania North. Let's go.
By the time it was over, more than 300 businesses were damaged, causing millions of dollars in losses as leaders called for calm.
The young people in our community, they're crying out. Many of them are in pain.
Within days, State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby would announce criminal charges against 6 officers, a decision that defined her career.
To the youth of this city, I will seek justice on your behalf.
The people are tired of those few bad seeds that's in the police department, and they want them out of here. They want them out. And guess what? We about to do it. Thank you, Marilyn Mosby.
Mosby and her team would soon discover they faced a difficult path. Lead attorney Jan Bledsoe recently put it this way.
I remember saying to her, you do understand that if we charge police officers, hell is going to rain down on us.
I think she ought to prosecute herself. Okay, that's my reaction. I think it was disgraceful what she did.
No justice, no peace!
The first trial ended with a hung jury. Others chose to let a judge decide who did not buy Mosby's theory of the case.
Did Freddie Gray get justice?
No, he didn't. Because he didn't do anything to cause an 80% severed spine. Now, his family got financial justice, but he did not get justice in the courtroom.
Mosby felt she had no other choice but to drop the remaining cases.
As a mother, the decision not to proceed on these trials, on the remaining trials, is agonizing.
The years that followed were some of Baltimore's most violent.
The police shut down. They stopped enforcing the law. In essence, they gave the public the middle finger.
A lot of officers stopped working because they were worried about getting indicted or worried about losing their job and doing something wrong. So the enforcement wasn't there.
In recent years, homicides and shootings have fallen dramatically.
I am inside one of several new Baltimore City Police transport vans.
The vans have been reconfigured and equipped with cameras, and police are wearing body cameras too.
We reformed the entire police department. We started from basically the ground level.
What do you think Freddie Gray's legacy is?
Police reform.
When you see this, I mean, it's a constant reminder.
Yeah, it is.
But some who live in the West Baltimore neighborhood where Gray grew up say many promises went unfulfilled.
The trauma is committed, but then there's no help for healing.
The large apartment building near where Gray was arrested has since been torn down and is now an empty lot. And after a decade, maybe not much has changed here at all.
The Department of Justice later found evidence was insufficient to prove any of the officers violated Freddie Gray's civil rights.
It's a lot of unhealed souls that walk around, not knowing what's going to happen next, not knowing what's going to happen when they encounter officers.
Mike Helgren, WJZ.
All right, Mike, great coverage. Thank you. The community gathered over the weekend in West Baltimore to honor Freddie Gray.
His twin sister, Frederica, placed a wreath under the mural dedicated to him. She was joined by several members of the community, including Mayor Brandon Scott.
And Frederica thanked the community for years of support in the fight for justice. Saturday, April 19th, marked 10 years since the death of Freddie Gray.
Faith is what some community members say carried Baltimore through the pain 10 years ago.
And local churches became safe havens to grieve, unite, and heal at the same time. Janae Reese spoke with faith leaders to reflect on that time and where we are today.
First Mount Calvary Baptist Church stands at the center of Baltimore's Sandtown, Winchester neighborhood. It's not far from where Freddie Gray grew up and the exact spot in 2015 where he was arrested.
The riots brought a lot of attention to Baltimore, but specifically Sandtown.
Reverend Dr. Derek DeWitt is the senior pastor and remembers how Gray's death changed Baltimore.
Plain and simple, it was a place with little hope during that time.
Unrest spread across the city following Gray's death. His funeral at New Shiloh Baptist Church weeks later drew in thousands.
The church was full of community, of not just people who knew him, but people that did not know him.
But later that day is when the unrest reached its peak and clergy were called to help calm things down.
And they asked me as I was leading the press conference, what will you all do? I just took the authority and said, we're about to go out in the street.
Arm in arm, they prayed and marched with gang members and their community to stand up for their neighborhood.
But the seminal moment was at the intersection of Penn and North. A police brigade in full riot gear. We're looking through smoke, so we don't know what they're coming to do to us.
They said to us, there's a fire right up the street on North Avenue. The people won't let us get to it. They're throwing rocks. We don't want to hurt anybody. Could you all lead the way?
And they did.
As we were on the corner talking about our next steps, somebody told me our building was on fire on Chester Street, our senior center.
This really just came out of nowhere. And it was rebuilt. Now, 10 years after the fire, the Mary Harvin Transformation and Senior Center still stands.
The real miracle was not that it was rebuilt a year to the date of the fire, but that it was fully leased up with residents on day one. The fire of that night became a light for a community that experienced decades of neglect and darkness.
Churches once at the center of the unrest became the focal point of revitalization.
What we've had to do as pastors is try to figure out ways to bring help and hope to this community ourselves.
Investments into more health clinics, housing developments, and other programs all grew from one of Baltimore's most difficult times.
We're doing mentorship, we're doing tutoring, and those things are working. We just need more resources so that we can duplicate those efforts.
And although each pastor represents 3 different congregations, their mission is the same: to hope for an even brighter future. Reporting, I'm Janae Reese for WJZ.
And help and hope is what it's all about. Janae, thank you. When we come back,
Denise Koch walks through Baltimore's Penn North neighborhood with one man whose future was altered after April 2015.
welcome back. For the people who live in the Penn North area, which is considered the epicenter of the uprising 10 years ago, some things have changed in the past decade and some have not.
Denise Koch walked the neighborhood with one man whose life was altered by what happened in April 2015.
I grew up here. I wasn't a personal friend with Freddie, but I grew up right here on Calhoun.
April 2015, Sean Young was swept up in what was happening right out his door.
I never seen anything like that before in my life.
Like
and
what?
Like the unity of the community. Like everyone was like this whole block filled.
Eventually, he became part of the protests, his image captured and sent around the world.
We were all on the same accord of wanting change and justice and saying, hey, you're going to take accountability for what happened here. We're not just going to sweep this under the rug and pretend like, oh, he just died. Like, no.
These are pictures Sean took when, in the midst of the unrest, this man gave him a camera and showed him how to use it. Sean is a professional photographer, his home base still not far from the infamous intersection of Pennsylvania and North.
They went into CVS, set it on fire, and I specifically remember there was a person who cut the hose. Like, y'all not like this was, no, it's gonna burn.
Today, a new CVS sits on the corner, and it's here a woman stops me to make sure I know there were young people doing good at that time.
They protected buildings, they stopped a lot of the destruction from happening.
This man, however, still can't talk about the death of his childhood friend, Freddie Gray.
There's a level of trauma there. You get
He's
still clearly traumatized by it.
Right after the unrest, Sean organized a football game between city officers and men from Penn North. Today, he says he senses less hostility.
What they've done, especially right here at Penn North, was they've provided more of a community officer.
Did we learn anything from that episode 10 years ago?
Yeah, let me tell you the most, and if you really paid attention to it, it's community. The power of community is just like, it's immeasurable.
For WJZ, I'm Denise Koch.
Denise, thank you. Well, soon after Freddie Gray's death, the Department of Justice would open an investigation into the Baltimore Police Department's policing practices.
And coming up after the break, we're going to take a look at what has changed in the BPD over the last decade. We'll be right back. Welcome back. After Freddie Gray's death, the U.S. Department of Justice investigation found Baltimore City Police committed widespread civil rights abuses. The BPD has now been under federal oversight.
WJZ investigator Mike Helgren takes a look at the progress of reform.
That was bound to come because what they did to Freddie Gray was uncalled for. That was uncalled for.
Thomas Gwynn, who lives in Sandtown, remembers being hurt and angry over Freddie Gray's death in police custody. He believes in the decades since, the way officers interact with the people they serve is getting better here.
I've been victimized by police before, I've been victimized, pulled over just because, I'm a young black man. Freddie Gray changed that. They give us much respect now.
We're not the department we were in 2015. It shows that our men and women have changed the culture of the BPD to the point that we are now the guardians and not the warriors that go in and take an area by storm.
Taking a community by storm may be an understatement. A scathing Department of Justice report commissioned after Gray's death exposed the extent of the problems, putting in black and white what many in the neighborhood where Gray grew up had been saying for years. Baltimore police engaged in unconstitutional policing with a pattern and practice of retaliation, excessive force, and unconstitutional stops, searches, and arrests, particularly targeting black residents.
The Department of Justice has a responsibility to examine the evidence and, if necessary, to help them implement change.
Among the outrageous violations, according to the report, a woman strip and cavity searched in public over a missing headlight, a man tased multiple times and frisked without cause, and people detained for simply wearing hoodies.
If it didn't happen at Freddie Gray, it would have happened to George Floyd. I think it was bound to happen at some point. The department was, we were moving further apart from the community.
You know, it changed a lot, you know, especially in this neighborhood. It changed the police department, you know, it made it better.
There have been changes, but I want to see more change, and I think I'm in good company.
Could you see it happening all over again?
I don't think it can happen the way it happened in the Freddie Gray case, because there are too many checks and balances that have been implemented.
The judge overseeing police reform warned the department it was playing with fire because of severe understaffing, more than 500 officers down. Still, Commissioner Worley says federal oversight has turned a troubled department into a touchstone.
Never did I ever think the Baltimore Police Department would be the agency that other agencies around the country and the world are coming to see how to do things right.
Commissioner Worley is hopeful the judge will find the city fully compliant and remove Baltimore from federal oversight by the time his contract is up in 2028. Back to you.
All right, Mike, thank you. In the past week, a federal judge released BPD from monitoring of 2 sections of its consent decree.
This termination is the first since the decree was put in place 8 years ago. The court will no longer monitor the department's officer wellness programs or its transportation of people in custody. 3 other sections were deemed in full compliance back in December.
And the police department must sustain the progress for a year before the court considers terminating them from that agreement. That next scheduled meeting between Justice Department officials and Baltimore City Police is next month on May 22nd.
Baltimore City's unrest 10 years ago was a turning point for a new generation of leaders.
And how those leaders are working to move the city forward with the hope of a brighter future. The details after the break.
For a new generation of leaders here in Baltimore.
And Stefan Dingle is following the story for us and has a look at how they are healing and moving the city forward now.
No justice, no peace.
Kwame Rose was on the front lines of the unrest 10 years ago after the death of Freddie Gray.
Freddie Gray never had a chance to live. Born with lead paint poisoning, like far too many people, thousands of children in Baltimore City. In and out, came from the neighborhood that had the highest rate of incarcerated black males in the entire city.
Shortly after the unrest, a then city councilman, Brandon Scott, voiced his and the community's frustrations.
I am simply pissed off. This is the city that I love. This is the city that I chose to dedicate my life to.
You'll never forget where you were, but most importantly, you'll never forget how the city came together.
Decades of systemic oppression boiled over, spilling into the streets.
Take back Baltimore! Take back Baltimore!
Established organizations like Leaders of a Beautiful Struggle were at the forefront of helping the community.
What the uprising did was, I think, it gave voice to a radical perspective that otherwise would not be seen as a legitimate course of conversation and mainstream political dialogue.
Born out of one of Baltimore's darkest moments came a new generation of leaders.
I've been able to do some incredible things. At the same time, understanding that my entire career is built off of a black man dying and people suffering.
A city shaped by redemption, grit, culture, and the will to overcome. They call it Charm City, and its people claim it with passionate pride.
What it looks like when you actually invest in people in a way where we're the solution to we're not the problem, right? We're the solution to our problem.
There are still some challenges.
We are not the perfect best Baltimore that we're going to be one day, but we're definitely light years away from where we were in 2015.
The future is being written by Baltimore youth with eyes on the next decade and hearts full of hope.
And to be from Baltimore is everything. The bus stop benches read it's the greatest city in America, and I believe that.
On your corner in West Baltimore, I'm Stefan Dingle for WJZ.
All right, Stefan, thank you. 10 years later, we remember Freddie Gray. He was a son, a brother, a friend, and he was certainly part of Baltimore.
Freddie Gray's life still echoes throughout this city and the nation. He will be remembered not only today, but also by generations of tomorrow.
And as you've had a chance to see tonight, we have come a long way with this city, but that work far from over. A lot of work that still needs to be done. Thank you for joining us for this special edition of WJZ News. Freddie Gray, 10 years later. Have a great night.